Hello, this is Taha.
This is Anaina,
This is Movie Masala.
and we're here to yap at you about films we watched recently.
And today we're doing
Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey.
Pining for a daddy he didn't even know, like some sniveling bastard.
Who's looking after your wife and son?
Do you see?
My dad is coming home.
Bringing vengeance. Bringing it all.
okay. I think initially let's just start off with very initial thoughts, came out of the movie, how I felt.
Yeah.
I personally came out being like, okay, this was genuinely felt like an epic presented to you on this incredible scale with this incredible immersion in a sense. And I came out of it feeling very absorbed by the film. Is that how I'd put it? What about you?
I get it. I came out feeling that this was impressive in parts.
Okay.
But the parts that would have impressed me the most were lacking.
Okay.
And that's not to say that I hated the film or that I loved it. Quite literally, I am very ambivalent about it.
Okay. So let's get into it then.
Yeah.
Starting off, I think just with the plot. This is very basically Homer's The Odyssey, which is stated.
I'm going to interrupt and say no, it's not. It's not The Odyssey.
Fair. I understand where you're coming from. I think let's say it's an adaptation. It's an interpretation and an adaptation of Homer's The Odyssey. It follows a lot of the similar main basic plot line, I would say, in a sense of that's mostly where the plot is coming from, with the tweaks here and there.
They're not really tweaks, but I'm not particularly mad about them because, okay, as someone who has read the Odyssey and the Iliad and a bunch of other kind of Greek mythologies around the same time. So the Odyssey is meant to be Odysseus' journey back home after the Trojan War, upon which he gets kind of lost and he encounters a bunch of these different, let's just say, obstacles. And then the Iliad is more about the Trojan War itself and about Helen of Troy's involvement, etc., etc. And what has happened here is we see the Odyssey happening, but we also have so many parts of the Iliad in it as well, because of the
done through
references.
Flashbacks and references. Yeah,
exactly, to the Trojan War, right? As a point of characterization for Odysseus. It also has bits of the Aeneid by Virgil when you have the character of Sinon involved, because Sinon isn't in either. He is a larger character in a completely different author's work. But this is not something I'm particularly mad about, because this is what the Greek writers also used to do, like Homer and Virgil used to do. They used to pick and pluck from different places and put together, which is what the Odyssey itself is. The Odyssey isn't written by Homer. It was just put together by Homer because it existed as a bunch of songs.
It's a compilation in that sense, very much.
Exactly. Which is why this interpretation / adaptation of the Odyssey kind of goes in the vein of the ancient Greek.
Yeah, I think, that's very fair to say. He does himself put a twist on it, and there are things that change here and there. There are also things from the Odyssey and the Iliad that are just kind of dropped together as well.
Yeah.
And we can come to that as well. Coming back to the plot in a way. You start off with Tom Holland, and I think we'll come to all of the performances in a bit.
Yes.
You start off with Tom Holland, who is playing
Telemachus.
Well,
that's the American pronunciation.
Yes. Fair enough. Okay, I'm going to butcher some of these pronunciations very much so, because I don't know. Pretty sure that they're pronounced differently in the Greek context. But Tom Holland playing Telemachus, who, with Anne Hathaway, who's playing Penelope, and them kind of waiting for Odysseus' return. And then it flashbacks or checks in. I don't know what would be the best way to phrase the way the story is told, which is told in the traditional Christopher Nolan structure of I'm not going to give you a linear narrative. I'm going to keep jumping in between time.
Yeah.
And then you follow Odysseus, played by Matt Damon, recounting both his journey, how he ended up where he is, and also within the third act trying to get back to Ithaca. I want to say spoiler alert, but again, all of this is 3,000 years old. Yeah.
That is the general plot. Yeah, and I don't think I've ever heard the Odyssey summarized so quickly. But since we're already on the plot, we can start by talking about the plot. And I think one of the main things is like this was written, so adapted by Christopher Nolan himself. And I have always kind of felt this in his adaptations. It's like he is better at, to me, his original stuff than he is at adaptations. Even his original stuff is, of course, taken from somewhere or whatever, sometimes.
All art is borrowed.
Exactly. Direct adaptations, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that it's Christopher Nolan and we know him so much for his formal techniques and for playing with time. The plot itself gets a little bit lost, especially in an adaptation such as The Odyssey, which is itself such a complicated and intricate text that it is difficult to adapt. I will not say that it isn't.
Yeah.
But when you leave out a lot of things that characterize your main character, that kind of makes me go, okay, so what are we trying to do here? For example, when we're in the cave with Polyphemus, the Cyclops.
In the film, he's not given a name.
Well, yeah, but his name is okay, so first of all, yes, he has a name, give him the name. It's kind of important in Greek mythology.
I think they also skip out on the whole section where after he's blinded, the other Cyclops come in and learning that, the two sort of learn that he's intelligent, but also not really delve into it in any meaningful way.
Exactly. And also the trick that Odysseus uses is the nobody.
Yes.
He tells Polyphemus his name is nobody. So when he is asked by the other Cyclops, who hurt you, who blinded you, he says, nobody did. And they kind of make fun of him. And so they escape. Also, they do escape by tying themselves to the bottoms of the sheep in certain retellings of it, which I think is such intelligent storytelling in itself. I don't see why you would choose to cut it.
I think for me, that's not the bigger thing. That thing that I feel is why would you not have that is much more of this understanding of make the Cyclops feel more intelligent, because that is part of the narrative that the film is trying to say of this regret and this remorse that Odysseus is supposed to feel at the end.
Exactly. On that note, I think when Odysseus has finally left Troy for the Trojan War, we see him as kind of ruthless and remorseless and kind of impulsive. We do find out eventually that he feels a lot of regret, but not for the looting and plundering and the injuring of Polyphemus or something, but for the Trojan War itself.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting take. It is also a very modern take, which I'm not saying I like or don't like. I'm just saying it's an interpretation of the Odyssey that is unique, which is why I say it's not entirely the Odyssey. It is also part Iliad, because the Iliad is what deals with the Trojan War. The Odyssey is about Odysseus and his way back home.
Yeah. He's just using all of these texts to add texture and background and context to the Odyssey itself, very much so.
I think he's using it not to add background, but to create a completely different background, a completely different character. So that's what I mean with the plot in terms of Odysseus is meant to be the biggest trickster. He's supposed to be really wise, which we know, but he's also meant to be really tactile and almost manipulative to a certain extent.
Yeah, and I think you do see some of that, but not to an extent where you have a strong reaction to it, is I would say, with tricksters and everything.
Exactly, yeah. Which is why I'm a little bit iffy on the writing of Odysseus himself. And then I'm also kind of iffy on the writing of Penelope.
This is another one of signature Nolan writing tropes where the female characters either feel very underwritten or less interesting and always adjacent to the male characters in his films, which I still think is true. I do think Anne Hathaway gives a lot to the performance.
Absolutely.
And I do think this is still better than Emily Blunt's character in Oppenheimer.
Definitely, yeah.
But it just still feels like her entire character is just adjacent to Odysseus and navigating around that.
Which is once again disappointing, because Penelope is meant to be the only person in the world who can out-trick Odysseus. And Nolan's Penelope is not set up to be that character, right? She's set up to be a very strong and stalwart figure, definitely. But not one with anything more than that, which is disappointing to see.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like she can match Odysseus. Odysseus still has to be the figure on the top.
Yeah.
Again, I've not read the Odyssey or the Iliad. Most of my knowledge of the entirety of this comes from the concept musical called Epic, which I have listened to multiple times.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I know that there are other female characters as well that are kind of written out, and the relationship he has with Calypso is different as well. It's darker, I would say, is the way I would phrase it, which is also kind of glossed over and like shined over with Calypso also just kind of vaguely roaming around Matt Damon, keeping him there in a very handholdy sense.
Yeah, I feel the same with Cersei as well, who's played by Samantha Morton. You know, she's meant to be much more intelligent and has a lot more depth than what we are shown as just someone who was wronged or someone who was evil and then turned these men into pigs. And when we see Odysseus interact with Cersei in the film, there's a very clear power dynamic. I don't know, it felt.
Yeah.
Whereas you read Cersei and you're like, I fear for Odysseus in this moment because like we don't know what's going to happen. And then eventually they fall in love and they have a long relationship and very like willingly. They have like a year-long relationship. Yeah, in some versions of the Odyssey. And it's because Odysseus recognizes the kind of intelligence in Cersei as well.
Oh, that's very interesting. I understand like cutting out some things for like just
time.
Time. Yeah. I fully understand. When that cutting out leaves characters feeling not fully developed.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, after I watched this and I was contemplating this, I also thought of this other film that I've watched, not based on a story as old, but there was this French adaptation, The Count of Monte Cristo from 2024, directed by Alexandre de la Patrie and Mathieu Delaporte. I'm really sorry if I didn't pronounce those names correctly. It's a similar like 3-hour film. And I remember coming out of that genuinely also feeling like that was an epic and it fully encompassed me in so many ways. And I think that one still I keep thinking about. The reason being because of how the characters felt so like well written. It felt like an epic. Not just because of the scale and the time and like it was set to, but also because it genuinely felt that you lived that life with that character. You've genuinely got to know the characters so deeply throughout the film. And here I think that is what's missing when I end this film. And I don't feel I've gotten to know these characters in such an in-depth manner.
Exactly. I know about the grandness of this story, but I don't know about the people that make it.
But yeah, I think other than that, I want to talk about like the biggest selling point that Nolan often has, which is his scale and like IMAX and all of those things. I think in terms of scale, for me, this film works in a lot of places. I think the Battle of Troy with the film does. I think the scene with the Cyclops the film does.
I think I read somewhere that when they do the Giants' attack, the Laestrygonians, that was also a scale filming. There was no CGI involved.
Yeah, like I think those things work really well. And I think they definitely are so much like elevated by the sound mix and like just by the score as well. Again, you have Ludwig Göransson returning again and just doing a phenomenal job again alongside Callum Armstrong, Rosa Pagorapati, and like the sound by Billy D. Burton. And I think all of that is just really, really well put. Like I didn't feel I have any issues with the sound mix, and I felt the sound was just used very well in that film.
Absolutely agree. I'm thinking particularly about the scene with Polyphemus in the cave when he is initially blinded and the kind of like visceral noise that comes out of him.
Yes.
And the scale of the noise itself. Like I've heard a lot of people talk about scale in terms of like the visual, but I think the scale of the sound is also insane.
Yes, definitely.
It literally feels oppressive. It feels claustrophobic. Like people around me were literally like curling up because of like the sound. And I think that's a really, really impressive thing to do.
Yeah, I think even with like every arrow felt sharp to me, like in a way that it hurt my ears. And there were genuinely places where the sound, like you said, was oppressive or it was so loud that you genuinely felt the way wanting to cover your ears a bit at that exact line, because that is how you should feel in that moment.
Definitely, like thinking about the storm that takes away all of Odysseus' men. That felt unbearable as well. And also when like every time Odysseus strings his bow and plucks it, that noise, that sound is beautiful, and it kind of blends perfectly into the score, which I have recently read that Ludwig Göransson and his team literally like recreated ancient Greek instruments like The Liar and stuff.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, exactly. So they kind of recreated them using modern kind of technology, but also practical instruments, which like you can feel that the sound is it's kind of trying to blend itself into the world rather than add to it.
Yeah, it feels mythical. It feels as epic as the film wanted to be very much. So it feels like a genuine epic soundtrack.
Definitely, yeah.
With the scale, I remember like you had thoughts with the IMAX and everything of it.
Yes, I did.
And I would love for you to share those.
And I know I disagree. So my thought about the 70mm IMAX is it is obviously so impressive to be able to do that. Right? Mm-hmm. You literally created a new form of practical filmmaking by putting the camera in a blip so that you reduce sound while you're filming, and then being very tactile and mobile with a camera that you're not meant to be tactile and mobile with. And that also increases the scale of the film massively. Like it opens it up really wide. You kind of see things that you wouldn't normally see.
He's painting on the biggest canvas he possibly can. And he's trying to use every part of it.
Exactly. But my thing is, then how would you be okay with 90% of people who are going to watch your film not be able to see that? Mm-hmm. And that's on the film industry more than it is on Nolan. But to me, he's also kind of involved in that. Is like, if you have this technology that is being pioneered, to me, I would want you to be able to see it. And also, I would want you to be able to see it in convenient way. Not convenient in terms of like, oh, there's a cinema on every corner that's showing it. But the cinemas that are showing it for absurd amounts of money. Let's start with that. And there are just not enough of them in places where people are going to see this film, where people's interest has been piqued because Christopher Nolan is the director. Like, just take India, for example, right?
Yeah.
We have IMAXs. We don't have any 70mm IMAXs, but we have IMAXs. But those aren't even real IMAXs. Most of them are fake IMAXs that don't have the correct scale, don't have the correct ratio, don't have the correct resolution. But they charge the same amount. And Christopher Nolan, Matt Damon, and Tom Holland visited Mumbai to kind of promote the film. And I'm like, beautiful. This is not something most people do as part of a world premiere. And this is going to make so many people go to the cinema to watch it because your physical presence was there and it made them feel like, you cared about them.
And please go watch films in cinemas, please.
Exactly. Please go watch films in cinemas anyway. But if you're doing all of that and you filmed it like this, I would just advocate for so many people that you're reaching to be able to watch it in the way you intended.
Yeah. Okay. So my sort of rebuttal, sort of like answer to that comes to the idea of like, I genuinely do understand the idea of like, this isn't accessible in the way it's meant to be viewed to so many people. And I do agree with that. Even in the UK, there are only like 2 full like 70mm IMAX cinemas, which are the BFI and like the Science Museum, which is not showing the Odyssey. So there's technically just one. And there are like 14 other like proper, like the lesser 35mm IMAXs.
Yeah.
So I do agree that it isn't accessible to others as well. But I also feel like the onus isn't entirely on Nolan to do, and I don't think you're saying that it is, but like, I think I don't personally blame Christopher Nolan for that, because then I feel I'm asking an artist to limit the canvas on which they paint on because it's not available to most people. But because most people can still watch this film in just a standard format and just still get the vast majority of this film perfectly fine. Because if I feel I do that, then I should also have the same criticisms towards people like Denis Villeneuve or people like even Ryan Coogler and everything with Sinners and everything, where I don't think you can get all of Sinners if you don't watch it in proper IMAX. And that way, it's like, then I don't know where you would draw the line with that argument, basically.
No, I understand that. My other thing is like, I agree in the sense that I didn't think I missed out on much by not watching it in either IMAX or 70mm, right? I don't know what it's like to watch it in the IMAX or the 70mm, so I'm not like speaking from knowing, but this might be personal preference again. It's like the scale or the ratio that I'm watching a film in has never been that important to me, and it always felt more of a skill and a technique thing.
Yeah.
As a viewer, it's not about what I'm watching, but it's about the the technique of filmmaking that went into it. And that is why my criticism is like, well, if the skill and technique that went into it is so amazing, why wouldn't you want people to see it?
I think the valid criticism is like, I think you should at least directly address the limitations that are there. I think that very much so I can very much understand of being like...
Yeah, what I'm more like bugged by is the fact that we're going around saying that, it's fine, some people can't watch it, so what? And not you and I, but the filmmakers themselves, not just Christopher Nolan, but the production houses, the distribution houses, the people responsible for making the film aren't addressing the limitations of the way it was made in, and not offering something in response, but just acknowledging it. It's like, we understand.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when you're talking about like the IMAX of it all, where like you're upcharging people for a screen that might be bigger, but it's not really IMAX either, and you're quoting those prices fair.
It's not even bigger. I'm going to be so fair for real here. It's not even bigger.
Fair. After this, the thing that we should talk about the most is performances, because there's multiple interesting factors here. I feel all of the actors do give like really good performances, from Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway. There's just so many. I can't just keep listing them.
There's too many.
There's too many. Zendaya and Robert Pattinson are back together on the screen for the second time this year, and they'll be back again in Dune. Zendaya will be back again in Spider-Man, and then also in Dune.
Yeah.
I just keep seeing the same actors, right? And all of them deliver great performances. I think John Leguizamo was really good in his role. Specifically, I feel he was one of the more standout roles, in my opinion.
Yes.
But when I'm saying like there's so many actors and I keep listing them, is in so many places, they just didn't blend in for me, in a sense that I just couldn't stop seeing Charlize Theron. I just couldn't see Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, like Zendaya. Like, they didn't feel just characters from the film. They felt like the actors more so.
Yeah, and to me, that's on the writing of the characters itself. It's like the reason why we can separate Tom Holland from Telemachus, for example, is that we have no reason to see Telemachus as this character that is so integral, or this character that is so well fleshed out. So you keep seeing Tom Holland as Telemachus, but you never see Telemachus.
For me, I think it might be more than that, because even the characters felt like fine to me, like Robert Pattinson's
Antinous.
Robert Antinous felt more a character rather than Robert Pattinson to me. But I think it felt more to, because there were just so many big name actors, like it kind of felt like I was pointing them out. And I think a part was just, you know how like the idea of like some people have iPhone face?
Yes.
Not that everyone does, but like some people obviously do more so than others. And it felt more so of like, there's not been enough done to like ground them visually within the film into some degree. They feel like, again, Tom Holland wearing armor rather than, again, Telemachus to me. Like, I think in a weird way, like John Bernthal feels perfectly natural here to me, because enough has been done with his like facial hair and makeup and everything to make me feel like he's part of this film. And in a weird way, Benny Safdie feels more a part to me. But that might just be because Benny Safdie is not a very well-known actor in that way.
No, but also they treat Benny Safdie's appearance as like a major character point, right? He has the gold bones, which are fabulous, by the way. It's like a ponytail that you whip around. And you have this kind of large, looming figure that you never see the face of, because of the size of his myth and also the kind of morality of it.
Yeah.
You can feel all of that.
Yeah, I think those work really well. But Anne Hathaway just Anne Hathaway. She was in Devil Wears Prada 2 this year. Because visually, she still just looks like Anne Hathaway wearing like that era's garments.
Yeah, and I also feel like the people who had the least amount of screen time, like Zendaya as Athena, Elliot Page as Sinan, and stuff like that, they, to me, were more standout performances as well. Like, they were going above and beyond for people who were on screen for 6 minutes each.
The way people were upset about this online for people who have barely like 8 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, even like Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy.
I liked hers the most, very honestly, with those like smaller performances.
Definitely, absolutely, yeah.
Because I feel Zendaya just doesn't have much to do in this film aside from look like upset at Matt Damon half the time and say like vague lines. Because like, man, she's Athena. She's like Athena. There should be at least one scene of her feeling like Athena, the warrior goddess type character.
Yeah. Instead of serving as the goddess of wisdom, the character is the goddess of Odysseus's regret.
Or the goddess of just disappointment at Odysseus.
Yeah. So, what is going on? But yeah, what I mean is like, even with what she's given, there is so much that they do. I agree with John Bernthal. I think for me, the standout performance was Himesh Patel as Eurydice, who has so much screen time alongside Matt Damon. And he just, I think, does a fantastic job of conveying this character who is loyal to his commander, but also has his own desires and has his own thoughts and doesn't want to mutiny.
Yeah.
But you feel that he's being led towards it.
Yeah, I think that's very fair.
So yeah, generally I think the performances are good.
Yeah, I think visually there could be more to like set them apart in a lot of ways, and where it does so visually, I think it does succeed. And when you talk about all the visuals and everything, I think this film does offer you a lot of spectacle. This is where Nolan does shine, is it gives you a lot of spectacle. I love the Cyclops scene like we've talked about. I love the scene where Cersei turns the men into pigs. That is genuinely horrifying to watch. It reminded me of the Pinocchio scene that everyone...
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I think that was really, really good as well. But again, he also falls back to the certain Nolan-isms that like restrict him in a way. Like I'm like genuinely after like thinking about this film, I'm like, Nolan, I think you can do better. Like genuinely, I think you have so much potential in a way that you can genuinely rise above this in such incredible ways. I think he does need other people on his screenplay to like punch it out, to like really get the most out of his spectacle.
To basically get himself out of his own trap.
Yeah, I agree. Because I do think he is able to draw in crowds like very few filmmakers are able to.
Absolutely, yeah. He has the same kind of influence that his kind of influences like Alfred Hitchcock and all did. So it's amazing and it's fantastic to see that. It's just, I wish he did something better with it.
Yeah, like I think he can do more like groundbreaking narratives is what I want from him. Because I think once a film is done, you do remember the spectacle of it, don't get me wrong and everything. But I think the narrative is what you do keep coming back to. The narrative is something that the size of the screen, the sound, anything can't really take away from.
Yeah.
Like there's been memes of like watching the Odyssey on my iPod like Nolan intended. And like the point is, if a story's narrative is so good, watching it in an iPod will still feel like a great experience, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
So I think that is what it boils down to. And this might be a bit of a harsh criticism, but the reason why like Nolan is always a director I'll look forward to, but never like a director that I'll like, go to bat for, like in a way like won't enter like my super excited, love this person, is because I feel there's a lot of things he does really well. There's nothing one thing he does where I feel he's just the best at it, full stop.
Yeah.
When I think of like scale and all of those things, I do think of first thing of Denis Villeneuve. Like when I think of like incredible like narratives that just kind of sweep you up in an aesthetic, I just think of Chloe Zhao, right?
Yeah.
When I think of like music and all of like scoring to that, I think of Edgar Wright. And I think with music as well, like I more think of the composer rather than the director's firma.
And I think of Ludwig Göransson.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I think of like score and everything. I also think of Ryan Coogler as well. So I just don't feel like he has one place where I feel he's doing something that nobody else can do as well. Like there's places where he can genuinely excel at. I feel if he is able to open himself up to more like those opportunities.
Definitely. I mean, it definitely gets us to talk a lot about his films because, and we haven't even touched on like some of the socio-political criticisms, which is like such as filming in the Western Sahara, which is occupied land, not having any Greek actors, or kind of having the actual Greek that is spoken not being understood by a lot of the characters. So we haven't even touched on all of that, which is also stuff that requires so much unpacking.
It's a very westernized adaptation of this.
Exactly. So all of that exists, and still we talk like a lot about it because at the end of the day, he is a filmmaker that has kind of set up an establishment for himself.
Yeah, I love the fact that he can get these people in. I love the fact that he's able to sell filmmaking as the thing. There's no other thing Christopher Nolan is doing. Like unlike the MCU where you're like brought in by superheroes and you're brought in by just anything Christopher Nolan does, and that's really incredible. But I do feel like you need some level of restriction. You do need him to, like, in the same way that I don't want him to end up the Wes Anderson route, where like because you're just not limited, or like
you get trapped in your own formal conceits.
Exactly. So yeah, those are our thoughts. Thank you for tuning in. This podcast was produced solely by us with musical assets from Pixabay. If you enjoyed this, please do share it. See you again next time.
Bye bye.